Have you ever felt the weight of a single moment? The kind of moment where history holds its breath, where the world stops to watch? Imagine standing on the edge of the unknown, a place where no human has ever stepped before. One wrong move, and there's no way back. This is the story of Apollo 11. To understand how humanity first walked on the moon, we have to go back to a time of competition, ambition, and an unrelenting dream to go beyond Earth. The 20th century was a time of competition, ambition, and unrelenting progress. But after World War II, the world was split in two, the United States and the Soviet Union. Two superpowers, two ideologies, and one goal: dominate the final frontier. It all began in 1957, when the Soviet Union shocked the world by launching Sputnik 1, the first satellite in history. A tiny metal sphere, no bigger than a beach ball. But its beeping signal echoed like a warning. It meant one thing: the Soviets were ahead. The U.S. scrambled to catch up. But just 4 years later, in 1961, the Soviets struck again, this time with a man. Yuri Gagarin became the first human in space, orbiting Earth in Vostok 1. America was falling behind, and the pressure was on. The response? A promise that seemed impossible. On September 12, 1962, President John F. Kennedy stood before a crowd and declared, "We choose to go to the moon, not because it is easy, but because it is hard." The challenge was set. America would not just send a man to space. They would land him on the moon. NASA launched the Apollo program, pouring resources into cutting-edge science, daring pilots and engineers working around the clock. The Mercury and Gemini missions paved the way, proving humans could survive in space. But the Soviet Union wasn't slowing down either. By 1965, they had completed the first spacewalk. In 1966, they landed an unmanned probe on the moon. It was a race against time. Then, in 1967, tragedy struck. Apollo 1, America's first manned moon mission, ended in disaster when a fire broke out in the command module, killing all 3 astronauts. It was a devastating loss, but NASA refused to give up. They rebuilt, redesigned, and pushed forward. By 1968, Apollo 8 made history as the first crewed spacecraft to orbit the moon, giving humanity its first glimpse of Earth from deep space. The finish line was near. Finally, on July 16, 1969, with the world watching, Apollo 11 launched toward destiny. The race was over. The next step, making history on the moon. The spacecraft chosen for this daring journey was Apollo 11, a 3-part vessel designed to carry 3 astronauts to the moon and back. Inside were 3 pioneers: Neil Armstrong, the cool-headed commander; Buzz Aldrin, the precision pilot; Michael Collins, the man who would stay in orbit, ensuring their way home. On July 16, 1969, at 9:32 a.m., the Saturn V rocket, the most powerful machine ever built, roared to life. A fireball erupted, shaking the ground as it lifted off from Kennedy Space Center. The world watched as the rocket climbed higher, piercing through the sky. For 4 days, they traveled through the emptiness of space, covering 240,000 miles toward the moon. They orbited the lunar surface, checking systems, preparing for the moment that would change history. Then, on July 20th, 1969, Armstrong and Aldrin boarded the lunar module. The descent to the unknown had begun. At first, everything went smoothly, but suddenly, Alarms. 1202 alarm, 1202 alarm. The onboard computer was overloaded. No one had seen this error before. Abort the mission? The world held its breath. Mission Control analyzed the data in seconds. Then came the call. Go for landing. But there was another problem. The Eagle was heading straight for a field of boulders. If they landed there, the module could tip over, trapping them forever. With seconds of fuel left, Armstrong took manual control. He searched for a safe spot, guiding the craft like a helicopter, 60 feet, 30 feet. Then silence, a pause. Then Armstrong's voice. Houston, Tranquility Base here. The Eagle has landed. The world erupted in celebration, but one final challenge remained, stepping onto the moon. 6 hours later, the world waited. Armstrong stood at the hatch of the lunar module. Below him, an untouched world, silent and endless. Slowly, he descended the ladder. Every movement was careful, deliberate. Then at 10:56 p.m. ET, July 20th, 1969, his boot pressed into the lunar dust. And then his words echoed across time. That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind. The world froze. People in living rooms, mission control, and crowded streets all held their breath. Humanity had done the impossible. Aldrin soon followed, describing the surface as magnificent desolation. They planted the American flag, ran experiments, and even took a call from President Nixon. For 21 hours, they walked where no human had ever been. But their mission wasn't over yet. They still had to make it home. After gathering samples and data, Armstrong and Aldrin returned to Eagle. Every system had to work perfectly, or they'd be stranded forever. With a blast of engine fire, they launched off the moon, reconnecting with Michael Collins in orbit. He had been alone for 21 hours, circling the moon, ensuring their way home. On July 24th, 1969, Apollo 11 splashed down in the Pacific Ocean. The world had changed forever. Humans had walked on the moon. Apollo 11 wasn't just a mission. It was proof that humanity could reach beyond Earth. It was a reminder that the impossible can be achieved with courage, vision, and determination. But here's a question for you. If you had the chance to explore any planet in our solar system, which one would you visit and why? Would you walk on Mars, dive into Jupiter's storms, or explore the icy oceans of Europa?